I know I made it just barely in time because I was on another Zoom meeting. Sorry, that won't be the norm. Um, hello, hello. I'm so excited to meet all of you guys. I know that we may have some more people joining us here in a few minutes, but I wanted to go ahead and get started. We have um, kind of a unique situation this term. Um, By the way, I'm the professor and I'm Tammy Crow, and it's nice to meet you. And you can call me Miss Crow, you can call me Professor, you can call me Professor Crow, you can call me Instructor Crow, you can call me almost anything, but I'm not a doctor. I don't have a doctorate. So don't call me Dr. Crow. But I am will be your professor for this course. However, as you can tell, I'm old. And so I'm going to have a surgical procedure about midway through the course, and I will be out for a week or so. And while I am out, Dr. Unick will be your substitute for this course. That sounds bad, doesn't it? Y'all don't do her like we do substitute teachers in public school. That's not nice. Sandra, do you want to go ahead and say hello and maybe introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, hi, I am Sandra Unick. I have been with Southeastern for about 2 years now as an adjunct teaching a couple of courses. I have been in public education in Texas for 22 years, and I've been a school counselor for 10 years. This will be 11 years now. So I work in the public schools and I also teach part-time in the evenings. But I'll be here. You can email me with questions as the course proceeds through the weeks. I'm available. Just keep in mind, I am in the public schools still, so I try to sneak in at lunch to check email. And then, of course, in the evenings is when I really do check emails. So if y'all have questions about any of the material or anything that I can help with, um, feel free to just send me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But I will definitely be in for week 4 and 5 for sure.
And so Dr. Unick and I were talking earlier about ethical standards and laws and regulations. And will you tell them what you said? Because, like, that is so perfect. And I say it all the time, but I think it helps to hear it from more than one person.
Yes, I focused, I did a specific training on ethics and law because those two really just they don't go together. You're always pulled one way or the other. Well, the law says this, but my ethical obligation is this, and it just never is a pretty black and white scene. And so it's tough. And so when I was looking through material through this course, I was like, this is great. This is good information. But just sharing cases that we read about or cases that come up in the courts or laws that are introduced is typically always because of something that's happened in the schools. And so I know that I was telling Professor Crow at our school something that had happened that now we have a district policy in school counselors' emails that at the bottom of the email, you have to, list information for students to get help if they are, having thoughts of self-harm because of a situation that ended up in the court where a student emailed a counselor after hours and was making reports of self-harm. Um, and the school counselor didn't get the email, didn't reply. The student did end up taking, their life, and they tried to hold that counselor responsible for the death of that student because they pulled the counselor's email from the district technology, how they can pull anything from your computer. And that counselor had record of checking emails in the evening. And so they tried to say, look, you check emails in the evening, this could have been prevented. So now our district requires a statement at the bottom where students can get help. Some counselors even have an automatic reply that will send out after hours a reply that says, if you have, whatever, and list numbers for help or whatever. So just things like that. I think that that's why we have these laws and things that we're learning. So I think it's great. So I was sharing that earlier, that you guys are going to spend a lot of time looking at some of the ethical obligations, and even cases. Read as many cases as you can. I think we grow as professionals when we learn what's happened in the past and how that can guide us for being better counselors in the future, I think.
So
Sorry, Professor Crowe.
no, I appreciate that so much. That was fabulous. Thank you so much. And thank you for hopping on here and letting me introduce you, because I know that it's nice to the students to feel like people are real people, and we feel that way more, I think, if we've actually saw them before and talked to them before. Before she goes, do any of you guys have any questions for Dr. Unick? So you will
Okay.
see her again probably towards the end of week 4, and then she will be in the class the rest of the semester. And and you're welcome to email. When I always recommend that when students have a question, that they email both. She's actually acting as the coach in this course, and so I recommend that they email both the coach and the professor with their questions, because one or the other of us may be online and be able to respond immediately, whereas otherwise you might wait longer if you only email one or the other of us. Does that make sense? And sometimes one of us may have the answer and the other one may not have the answer. And so there, again, it saves you a lot of time. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Unick, for hopping on.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
So I do want to talk, first of all, I want to ask about your questions if you have questions, because it's, the course hasn't started yet. So I really appreciate you guys hopping on and being here tonight and already being involved. So do you guys have any questions or anything that I can help you with before we talk about anything else? Okay, so I recognize some of you guys as people who have already submitted your gold badge. Yay, y'all, because you do have to do that gold badge training. I don't know. I assume that you guys get that information when you're enrolled. Is that correct? Okay, and so you have to do that. You can see the Start Here module, but you can't actually do any work in week 1 until you submit that badge. So while I hate to waste y'all's time because you probably already know, I'd like to just quickly share my screen and show you what where to submit that gold badge if you have not submitted it. So I'm already in one of the sections of the class. If it's not your section, don't worry about it because they're both laid out exactly the same. So what you would need to do is, I always recommend that students start here and go through the modules. But when you're on this home page, if you've not looked at it first, there's an overview video that walks you through how to navigate the course. Did you guys find that? Because I'm never sure how many people actually see it and how many just kind of fumble their way through. So I think that that's very helpful to show you how this course is laid out. And so if you're still looking for how to submit your gold orientation, after you read all of the stuff down here at the bottom of the Start Here module, there's a place for you to attach that. And when you complete your training, you actually can print a certificate. And I recommend that you do go ahead and print that certificate, because you will need to submit this in almost every course in the program. It'll just be part of your Start Here stuff. So if you just go ahead and do that to begin with, I think it'll be easier for you. Now, I know that some of you guys probably used the buttons that were marked done in all of your stuff for the gold. And I'm glad to set that up so that y'all can do that in this course if you think that that's helpful to you. Have any of you been in week 1 yet? Okay. So I talk about this a couple of places, but I want to show you real quick. So like Dr. Unick said, we talk about the roles of the counselor, I provide you with a lot of getting started kind of information on the program and also ethics in this course. So we have 3 topics that we address almost every week. And so I laid out the modules in a way that I hope is helpful. And I'm actually going to ask for your feedback because we just redesigned this to make it this way. So if it doesn't work well, be honest with me because like I can take it. I may cry because I'm not kidding, but I did spend a lot of time because they said, I think this would be really helpful if you did XYZ. So I did. So each week you have the date for that week, and then you have 3 headings. You have course and program information, you have role of the school counselor, and you have ethics. And you have those same things. And those are just headers, just subheadings to divide it up so that it's hopefully not so overwhelming. And then under each one of those, you're going to have a read, watch, do. So anything that you need to read that's related to that topic, anything you need to watch that's related to that topic, and any assignments. So I do want to point out, though, that all of the assignments are due generally either Friday or Sunday. So it's not like all of the program stuff is due earlier than the stuff down here in ethics. Does that make sense? So that's where I'm not sure that it's going to work well for y'all, but I'm hoping. So feedback, I'm really looking for feedback. So, all right. So, this week you will have an introduction discussion board, but you're also going to have a week 1 discussion board. So you're going to have 2 discussion boards this week, and you're also going to have an assignment this week. So this week has a lot of little things that you do. You're going to have an ethics quiz, which I hope you guys like my ethics quizzes because they're really kind of a scavenger hunt more than anything else. And they're just a way to let you guys get familiar with the different ethical standards. So we use the ASCA ethical standards. They are linked in your Start Here module, and they're also linked under Read for Ethics. And so you may want to either print those out or download them so that you will have them. And then each week in the first 4 weeks, first 3 weeks maybe, you're only going to do certain sections of them. And then from week 4 on, you're pretty much working with the whole ethical standards. But that lets you kind of not be so overwhelmed looking at the whole standards document. You can just look at small pieces to get familiar with it. Does that make sense? Does that work for you? So, anything that's under do is an assignment. Anything under watch should be video or something else that you would watch. And then the read will be different reading assignments. So, any questions about that? Okay. So let me talk just a minute about how I see these meetings going. So this one is a little bit different because I just wanted to hop on here. I thought people probably had some questions, but the people who have questions may not be on here. So, next week, I will go over some program things that I don't want to really go over today because people may not be here. But in week 1, under program information, one of the things that you need to do is a memorandum of understanding. And in that memorandum of understanding, it talks about some things to do with practicum. And practicum is your clinical experience that's at the end of the program. And so I know it seems really crazy to be talking about that in your first course, but right now, you probably haven't paid anything. And you won't pay anything until after next week. So this week and until Friday of next week, you can drop this course and not have to pay a penny. Okay. So that's why we talk about that now, because in the practicum course, you are required to do a clinical practicum experience within a public school. It has to be a brick and mortar school. You have to record actual students and have a student caseload. And so we want you to, there's a FAQ form that's attached to that memorandum of understanding. Be sure and read those things. And if you have any questions, bring those to class next week when we meet on Monday night, and we will address any of those kind of questions, because we don't want you to go all the way through the program and get to practicum and not be able to graduate because your district doesn't allow you to do that. Does that make sense? We will also have the librarian come next week, and she will talk about databases. And I know that you guys have probably used college databases before, but and talk about peer-reviewed journals, because in all of your classes, well, I think all of them, in the majority of your classes in this program, you will be expected, it's at 7 p.m. on Mondays, Central Time. So if your time is a different time. Now, please understand that you are not required to attend any of these meetings. They are recorded and they are posted. You do want to make sure that if you cannot attend them, that you watch the recording, because there is information that's provided in these class meetings that would not be provided anywhere else. Does that make sense? Because, that's the way it is when you go to class. So you're not required. And I understand that some people, I mean, like sometimes we have people from Thailand and China and all of those places, and they don't want to get up at 1 a.m. and attend class. I don't know why, but there are 2 classes in the program that you have mandatory attendance for. So I'm going to go ahead and mention that tonight too, because if you can't make that work, then this is not the program for you. So group counseling lab, you will become part of a counseling group, and that meets 7 weeks. And we usually have 2 or 3 sections and their own different days. And in the schedule, it will tell you what day and time. And there is some flexibility. You have to have research before you take that class, but if you need to swap it because this semester there's no way that I could attend, but in the summer I can attend, kind of thing, you're allowed to do that. The other course that you must attend, it's mandatory, you will fail the course if you do not attend these 2 courses, is practicum. And that is part of your that is your institutional group supervision. And so you do have to attend those as well. And we try to make that as flexible as we can. All of them are after, I think one may be at 5:30 occasionally, but generally they're 6 o'clock or after. And we usually have one at 8 for those folks who are in Mountain Time that need a little bit later. So we usually have at least one section that starts at 8 o'clock Central Time. And really, there are still people who are in those other countries that literally are having to get up in the middle of the night and attend. So, I mean, like, it does take a little bit of dedication for those folks. But if you have any questions about that, I'm glad to answer those questions, but I do want you to know those things up front while it's still possible to drop this program and not be out money. Yes, there is flexibility. And one of the reasons why we're meeting tonight is because in this program, we pretty much don't accept late work. I mean, like, we don't accept late work. And I know that that's difficult in our lives. And so that's why we allow students to submit things as far as a week ahead. I tell them it's a DUE date and not a DO date. And so, so we really do try to be as flexible as we can, but our flexibility is better on the front end and not on the back end. And when we first moved this program online, we really did try taking late assignments. And what we found was that we were doing our students a disservice, because if you get behind, you can't get caught up as fast as things go. So are any of y'all taking 2 classes at the same time? Okay, so let's talk about that in just a minute. If you're taking 2 classes at the same time, either this term or any other term, one of the things that you need to remember is just like when you guys have midterms at school, we mostly have our heavy assignments due on week 5 and week 6. And so we do allow y'all to work ahead. And so like all of my weeks are open. There's some things that you obviously would not want to work ahead on in preview week. You want to start with week 1 and work. And we ask you not to submit your assignments more than a week in advance. So like this week, you can submit week 1. Next week, you could submit week 2. However, that doesn't mean that you can't begin working on major projects. In fact, I encourage you to take a look at those and see what they're going to entail. And we'll talk more about it next week. But you guys will do an interview with a practicing counselor. And that information will be used with your week 5 assignments. But like those questions are in week 2. They may be in week 1, but for sure they're in week 2. If you want to look at those questions and go ahead and set up that interview with your school counselor and get that out of the way and get that typed up, you're welcome to do that. The other thing, in week 5, we have what we call an identity paper, where you're looking at your personal identity as a school counselor. And you're going to use those interview questions for part of that. And so you obviously wouldn't want to work on that right now. And there's some other parts of it that you wouldn't want to work on right now. But part of it is, why do you want to be a school counselor? What made you want to be a school counselor? And I don't think that's going to change from now and 5 weeks from now. So like, if you want to go ahead and type that up, feel free to do that. People, it's usually between a half a page and a page of just kind of your story of how you got here. You know, what happened that made you decide that a school counseling career was a good fit for you. So there's actually a template, and that's called an identity paper assignment, and that's in week 5. So you could actually work ahead on that part of it. You could also work ahead on the disposition. So there's a disposition form, a paper that has the different school counseling dispositions. And those are not going to change. Those are either a strength for you now or a weakness for you now, and they're still going to be the same in 5 weeks, right? So those are 2 sections of that you're welcome to work on ahead of time, anytime you want to do that. So is that helpful to y'all at all? Okay. So there's a lot of things I could talk about tonight, because you're going to find that I can talk a lot. I do want to just real quickly go back and say, I really do apologize that I am going to be kind of out of commission for a week or 2 during this course, but I handpicked my substitute for those weeks, and she is fabulous. And we've gone over all of the assignments, and I have videos. So in week 4, you have a discussion board that is primarily experiences that I had. And so in the beginning of week 5, there will be a video that pops up that gives y'all some feedback as a group about what really was behind those scenarios that I gave you, and kind of make you feel a little more comfortable about that, I hope. So we've worked really hard to make that. No, that's a good question. We worked really hard to make this a smooth experience for y'all, and I hope that it is. So I'm reading over here in the chat, and I'm getting tickled. Seth, please don't. No, we don't want you to quit teaching. Actually, a lot of our students are already working as counselors by the time they get to practicum, and like that is really ideal, because that makes practicum really easy for you. But it's not necessary at all. So you only have to get 100 hours during practicum. And so if they're still teaching, they can get those hours in the morning, at their planning period, at lunch, after school, but it does have to be on the school site. So what I do recommend is that if you are still working as a teacher, that you don't, because you can take another class each term with practicum. And if you're working as a counselor, that works great. If you're not working as a counselor, I don't recommend it, because you're using every available minute of time at school that you have for your practicum. So guess when you're going to be doing your grading, your planning, all of those things that you would normally do part of at school, you're going to be doing it at nights and on the weekends. So that's probably the only difference I would say between students who are a teacher and students who are already working as a counselor, is that you don't probably want to take another course with it if you're still teaching. But yeah, last semester, I also teach practicum. And last semester, out of my 10 students, 7 of them were still teaching and 3 were working as counselor. So the 3 that was working as a counselor, we were like, that's not fair. You gotta make sure you have some variety. Don't be trying to turn in all 100 hours in the first 6 weeks, which you can't. You have to. So of those 1,200 hours, let me tell you something that will make you feel better, Seth, because I can see that stress in your eyes already. 14 hours of it is meetings with your site supervisor. You will have a school counseling site supervisor. That's usually somebody at your site or at a neighboring district. They have to be a school counselor with at least 2 years of experience. So you will meet with that person for an hour every week. You can do it all in one block. You can break it up into 2, but you'll meet with them for an hour all 14 weeks. And so that's 14 of your 100 hours. And then you will also meet your practicum class. And there is 4 weeks that you typically don't meet your practicum class. So that's another 10 hours though. So you're talking about 24 hours right there. Usually, there's some kind of holiday that you may or may not be on holiday at your school. There's also interim week because practicum is a 14-week class. And so you do the 7 weeks with the first 7-week term and the 7 weeks with the second 7-week term. But in between those two, you have a week where you don't have any assignments for that class, but you can still accrue hours for that class. You can also accrue hours in preview week as long as you get your contract and all that, and which we'll talk, you'll hear a lot more about that way before then. So that actually gives you 16 weeks to get that 100 hours. So you can see that we're talking about fewer than 10 weeks, 10 hours a week, and some of those are outside of school. So does that make you feel better? SPED and counseling does oftentimes goes hand in hand. I will say though that you can count IEP hours, some of them, not very many. We really don't want SPED teachers doing it as much as other people because you're more familiar with it. And so the idea is that we would allow it, but with your practicum, we really do. That's that opportunity to actually be a counselor while still having that safety net. And so we like for you to get as many different opportunities and experiences as possible. And
Well,
so
I was gonna ask Professor Crow, as a SPED teacher, I have a majority of my students have social emotional disorders that go along with their learning disabilities that I mean directly affect their learning skills. What is your take on
so
possibly working with those students on kind of twofold, or is that a conflict of interest situation?
yeah, that's a dual relationship. And so that's true for everybody, is that you cannot work with your students of record during practicum. So it does have to be other students, but usually your school counselor is really happy to have some help. And so they really are usually pretty good about lining you up people to work with. And so 40 hours of that is direct student instruction, and then 60 hours is learning about the paperwork and all that kind of stuff that goes along with being a school counselor. So those indirect hours. It's not unusual that you've not heard anything from the other instructor because this is your first class. I really try to start early and make sure that you guys have what you need to get a good start. You will not meet during preview week for any other class except maybe one. And that instructor is just like me, and she just likes to get to know you guys. But you will have a meeting in that other class next week. And I think it's on Tuesday night. So you should be taking theories if you're taking 2 classes. I'm so glad somebody mentioned that because that makes me think about it. So there is a bit of an issue in that when you go into colleague, if you enroll yourself, it looks like you're supposed to be taking orientation in human growth and development. If you are in human growth and development with this class, please, for the love of all that's holy, get a hold of your advisor or email me or email somebody and get out of human growth and development, because you do need to have this class in theories before you can be successful in human growth and development. So, and I know that you guys really know a lot about human growth and development, but there's some APA and some of that kind of stuff, just those things that it just really is a rough haul if you're trying to pair these two together in your first term. So,
So can I ask a question?
yes.
Thank you for all this information. It's super helpful. I like signed up, applied, signed up, did the orientation, but like I didn't know anything. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. The other class that they put me in is theories of counseling. How will I know if I go into Canvas, will I see that course there as well? Okay,
Yes.
and that'll give me all the information for like when I'm supposed to log on for that meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
And
okay,
in
great,
fact,
thanks.
just like this class, you can go ahead and start working in that class this week if you've got your textbook. And if you don't have your textbooks by now, please don't order from the bookstore. Well, I didn't say that because we're recording, but I not to say anything bad about our bookstore, but like it's too late because they take longer to ship. So like you would want to either get digital access from like Vital Source or get Amazon Quick Ship or somewhere where it ships really quick if you don't have your books already. So, and that's another reason why I send the books out, but I know there's still people who are still enrolling and still being accepted today. So like, so we understand that, but just try to get your books as quickly as you can. And back to, yes. Oh yeah, the bookstore does have digital versions. So if you're getting digital versions, then the bookstore is a good spot. Yeah. If you're not currently working in a school, unfortunately, no. So, but that's because where do you live? Oh,
I'm in Oregon.
yeah. So we don't know any school counselors in Oregon.
Okay, me either.
However, I will tell you that we haven't really had a lot of problems with people being able to get into the school districts. You probably will have to get fingerprints and that kind of stuff. I will say, you don't say what you're working at, but if you're working at a job with any flexibility whatsoever and you could substitute or something sometime during this process, that might be a really good way to make some connections.
Okay.
And some people will do it at their children, their siblings, their whatever school. But I would start reaching out now and making those connections and finding out if that's an option. Because unfortunately, that is a thing that we used to do when all of our students was local. We did hook them up with local counselors that we thought would give them a good practicum experience, but now we can't. I'm sorry. The 4th edition of the Transform Counselor, y'all, I cannot stress that is essential. Now, the law and ethics book, we're actually doing the 5th edition now. And if you can find the 4th edition and you want to do that, that would be okay. But the Transform Counselor has to be the 4th edition. And here's why. I know it's so much more expensive. And like, I get it, y'all. And I know that we have 2 textbooks and then we have that anthology. The anthology, you do have to purchase that through the bookstore, but you will use it all the way through the program. So like in each class, you submit one assignment. So it's kind of like, did any of y'all go to school when y'all had the old notebook portfolio that you added all this stuff to? Yeah. So this is that, but it's in digital form. So you usually only have 1 or 2 assignments per course that you submit to that. Ours are not due until week 6, but I do ask you to affirm that you have that by about week 3. But if it helps you any to wait until week 3 to get that, then like I get that.
Do you prefer we get the online edition, or if we wanted to get the paperback edition to keep for library purposes?
The law, if you can get them and get them in by next week, I really would probably get the print and keep it, especially of the law and ethics book. Like, and if you don't have the money to buy it now, then maybe later buy it and add it. So when I see students, and if you want it cheap, like if you have not joined the Facebook group in the Start Here, we have the Facebook group. And if you join the Facebook group and say, hey, I need to buy these books, there's always people selling them and they sell them pretty cheap. But like I cringe when they're selling that law and ethics book because like Dr. Unick said, those things are so helpful to you. Like that would be on my bookshelf forever. I'm not gonna lie.
And
I
then
think-
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Continue. My other question is in regards to the e-portfolio, the anthology. The syllabus says that there's no ISBN, must be purchased through the bookstore. Is there another way to get our hands on the anthology e-portfolio?
No, and it's a 1-year subscription. I know, like I get it. We fought against it, but we lost. We fought the good battle and we lost because we have to have it for accreditation. And so it is a 1-year subscription. And worse than that, they do not tell you that you need to resubscribe. So when you purchase it, you might want to put that date a year or about a week before that year would be up that you need to renew it so that you remember to renew it. Now, anybody who is not a school counseling student does not submit the portfolio stuff. So they do not need the anthology because sometimes we have students from our sister programs that take this course. And so they don't submit to anthology. Yes. So yes. Question was, I need one connection with a local school counselor. It's just one practicum. Yes, we only have one 100-hour practicum in the school setting. We do have another clinical course that's called pre-practicum, but you don't have to do that in the school setting. If you're a full-time mom to 3 young kids and they're not in school, like I would find a friend to keep them and substitute 1 day a month. So, I mean, all the schools need substitutes, right? Everybody agrees with that. So like, yeah, so that would be a way to make you a connection. There is also in several of the courses, there's going to be, and in our course, we asked you to reach out to a school counselor to be your mentor. And it can be a school counselor in your school or in a different school, somebody that you think is a good counselor. And that mentor, unlike the site supervisor for practicum, the mentor is just somebody that I can ask questions of, okay? Or I can ask them to fill out the use of time form so that I know what the school counselors in my school actually do. Any other questions about anything that you guys have? Okay. So I'm so excited that you guys came and joined me tonight. And like, I hope that it was really helpful to you. And I'm excited that maybe most of y'all will be able to come back next week. And if you can't, that's okay. Just make sure you always watch the recording because I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes the answers to test questions might be in those recordings. Like they might be there. So that's important. All right. If y'all don't have anything else, you're welcome to go. And like, if you think of questions, be sure and email me and Dr. Unick, and we will try to answer them as quickly as possible.
I had one more follow-up question,
Uh-huh.
just on average, and this may be a hard question to answer. Our Monday evening classes, are they how long time-wise do you think they're going to go each week? Just out of curiosity.
So usually they go an hour. I don't think I've ever gone more than an hour. Well, maybe 5 minutes ever, but usually an hour.
So there's a challenge to try and make them go longer than an hour and really see if I can push the limits of your patience here.
No, like I'm good. I used to teach 3-hour block classes and I can talk forever, but like I don't think y'all can listen to me forever because like I was not blessed with that pleasant voice like some people have. And so yeah, I used to teach IETV and I would do everything except for stand on my head, but on Zoom, it's a little more challenging, so. Anything else you guys think of, just reach out to me, like I'm here for you. Don't hesitate, if you are taking that other class, get on over in there too and take a look around and see if you have any questions and start reaching out to that professor, because like she's very kind and will, I think she does actually meet every week. And so loves to have students there and have you ask questions. So all right. I will talk to y'all next week.